Okay. This is the public reading for December 7th. The Torah reading is Genesis chapter 28, verse 10 through Genesis chapter 32, verse 3. And the gospel reading is Matthew 13 through Matthew 14. Okay. Let's get started in Genesis chapter 28, verse 10. Then Jacob went out from Beersheba and went to Haran, and he arrived at a certain place and spent the night there, because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head and slept at that place. And he dreamed, and behold, a stairway was set forth, or was set on the earth, and its top touched the heavens. And behold, angels of God were going up and going down on it. And behold, Yah was standing beside him. And he said, I am Yahweh, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The ground on which you were sleeping I will give to you and to your descendants. Your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And all the families of the earth will be blessed through you and through your descendants. Now behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go. And I will bring you to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised to you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely Yahweh is indeed in this place, and I did not know. Then he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is nothing else than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a stone pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, or Bethel. However, the name of the city was formerly Luz. And Jacob made a vow, saying, If God will be with me and protect me on this way that I am going, and gives me food to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return in peace to the house of my father, then Yahweh will be my God. And this stone that I have set up as a pillar shall be the house of God. And of all that you give to me, I will certainly give a tenth to you. And Jacob continued his journey and went to the land of the Easterners. And he looked, and behold, there was a well in the field. And behold, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well the flocks were watered. And the stone on the mouth of the well was large. And when all the flocks were gathered there, they rolled away the stone from the mouth of the well. And they watered the sheep, and returned the stone upon the mouth of the well to its place. And Jacob said to them, My brothers, where are you from? And they said, We are from Haran. And he said to them, Do you know Lavan, son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said to them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. Now look, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep. And he said, Look, it is still broad daylight. It is not the time for the livestock to be gathered. Give water to the sheep, and go, pasture them. And they said, We are not able until all the flocks are gathered. Then the stone is rolled away from the mouth of the well, and we water the sheep. While he was speaking with them, Rachel came with the sheep which belonged to her father, for she was pasturing them. And it happened that when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob drew near and rolled away the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was the relative of her father and that he was the son of Rebekah. And she ran and told her father. It had happened that when Laban heard the message about Jacob, the son of his sister, he ran to meet him. And he embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Surely you are my flesh and my bone. And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, Just because you are my brother, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wage should be. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Now the eyes of Leah were dull, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. Then Laban said, Better that I give her to you than I give her to another man. Stay with me. And Jacob worked for Rachel 7 years, but they were as a few days in his eyes because he loved her. And Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed. So Laban gathered all the men of the place and prepared a feast. And it happened that in the evening he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went into her. And Laban gave Zilpah his female servant to her. to Leah his daughter as a female servant. And it happened that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Now why did you deceive me? Then Laban said, it is not the custom in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, then I will also give you the other one on the condition that you will work for me another 7 years. And Jacob did so. So he completed the week of this one. Then he gave Rachel his daughter to him as a wife. And Laban gave Bilhah his female servant to Rachel his daughter as a female servant. Then he also went into Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with him yet another 7 years. When Yahweh saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Then Leah conceived and gave birth to a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because Yahweh has noticed my misery, that I am unloved. Now my husband will love me. And she conceived again and gave birth to a son. And she said, it is because Yahweh has heard that I am unloved, that he gave me this son also. And she called his name Shimon, or Simeon. And she conceived again and gave birth to a son. Then she said, now this time my husband will be joined to me, for I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore she called his name Levi. And she conceived again and gave birth to a son. And she said, this time I will praise Yahweh. Therefore she called his name Yehudah, or Judah. And she ceased bearing children. When Rachel saw that she could not bear children to Jacob, Rachel envied her sister. And she said to Jacob, give me children. If not, I will die. And Jacob became angry with Rachel. And he said, am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? Then she said, here's my servant girl, Bilhah. Go into her, that she may bear children as my surrogate. Then I will even have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah, her female servant, as a wife. And Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and gave birth to a son for Jacob. Then Rachel said, God has judged me, and has also heard my voice, and has given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan, or Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's servant, conceived again and bore a second son to Jacob. And Rachel said, I have struggled a mighty struggle with my sister and have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali, Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took Zilpah, her female servant, and gave her to Jacob as a wife. And Zilpah, the female slave of Leah, bore a son to Jacob. Then Leah said, good fortune. And she called his name Gad, or Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's female servant, bore a second son to Jacob. Then Leah said, how happy am I, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Asher, or Asher. And in the days of the wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field, and he brought them to Leah, his mother. And Rachel said to Leah, please, give me some of your son's mandrakes. And she said to her, is your taking my husband such a small thing that you will also take the mandrakes of my son? Then Rachel said, then he may sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came in from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him. And she said, come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. And he slept with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and gave birth to a 5th son for Jacob. Then Leah said, God has given me my wage since I gave my servant girl to my husband. And she called his name Yishachar, or Issachar. And Leah conceived again and gave birth to a 6th son for Jacob. And Leah said, God has endowed me with a good gift. This time my husband will acknowledge me, because I bore him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun, or Zebulun. And afterward she gave birth to a daughter, and she called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel and listened to her, and God opened her womb. And she conceived and gave birth to a son. And she said, God has taken away my disgrace. And she called his name Joseph, saying, Yahweh has added to me another son. And it happened that as soon as Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, send me away, that I may go to my place in my land. Give me my wives and my children, for which I have served you, and let me go. For you yourself know my service that I have rendered to you. But Laban said to him, please, if I have found favor in your eyes, I have learned by divination that Yahweh has blessed me because of you. And he said, name your wage to me, and I will give it. Then he said to him, you yourself know how I have served you, and how your livestock have been with me. For you had little before me, and it has increased abundantly, and Yahweh has blessed you wherever I turned. So then, when shall I provide for my own family also? And he said, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, do not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed your flocks and keep them. Let me pass through all your flocks today, removing all the speckled and spotted sheep from them, along with every dark-colored sheep among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. That shall be my wages. And my righteousness will answer for me later when you come concerning my wages before you. Everyone that is not speckled or spotted among the goats or dark-colored among the sheep shall be stolen if it is with me. Then Laban said, Look, very well, it shall be according to your word. But that day he removed the streaked and spotted male goats, and all the speckled and spotted female goats, all that had white on it, and every dark-colored ram, and put them in the charge of his sons. And he put a journey of 3 days between him and Jacob pastured the remainder of Laban's flock. Then Jacob took fresh branches of poplar, almond, and plane trees and peeled white strips on them, exposing the white which was on the branches. And he set the branches that he had peeled in front of the flocks, in the troughs and in the water containers. And they were in heat when they came to drink. And the flocks mated by the branches. So the flocks bore streaked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and turned the faces of the flocks toward the streaked, and all the dark-colored in Laban's flocks. And he put his own herds apart and did not put them with the flocks of Laban. And whenever any of the stronger of the flocks were in heat, Jacob put the branches in full view of the flock, in the troughs that they might mate among the branches. But with the more feeble of the flock, he would not put them there. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. And the men became exceedingly rich, and had large flocks, female slaves, male slaves, camels, and donkeys. Now he heard the words of the sons of Laban, saying, Jacob has taken all that our father has, and from that which was our father's he has gained all this wealth. Then Jacob saw the face of Laban, and behold, it was not like it had been in the past. And Yahweh said to Jacob, Return to the land of your ancestors and to your family, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field, to his flocks, and he said to them, Look, I see the face of your father, that it is not like it has been toward me in the past, but the God of my father is with me. Now you yourselves know that I have served your father with all my strength, and your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God has not allowed him to harm me. If thus he said, Speckled shall be your wage, then all the flock bore speckled. And if he said, Streaked shall be your wage, then all the flock bore streaked. God has taken away your father's livestock and given them to me. Now it happened that at the end of the mating of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams mounting the flock were streaked, speckled, and dappled. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up your eyes and see. All the rams mounting the flock are streaked, speckled, and dappled, for I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, or Bethel, where you anointed a stone pillar, where you made a vow to me. Now get up, go out from this land, and return to the land of your birth. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there yet a portion for us, and an inheritance in the house of our father? Are we not regarded as foreigners by him, because he has sold us and completely consumed our money? For all the wealth that God has taken away from our father, it belongs to us and to our sons. So now, all that God has said to you, do. Then Jacob got up and put his children and his wives on the camels, and he drove all his livestock and his possessions that he had acquired, the livestock of his possession that he had acquired in Padan Aram, in order to go to Isaac, his father, to the land of Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole the idols that belonged to her father. And Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he had intended to flee. Then he fled with all that he had, and arose and crossed the Euphrates, and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. On the 3rd day it was told to Laban that Jacob had fled. Then he took his kinsmen with him, and pursued after him, a 7-day journey, and he caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. And God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night, and said to him, Take care that you not speak with Jacob, whether good or evil. And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban and his kinsmen pitched their tents in the hill country of Gilead. Then Laban said to Jacob, What have you done that you tricked me, and have carried off my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you hide your intention to flee and trick me, and did not tell me, so that I would have sent you away with joy and song and tambourine and lyre? And why did you not give me opportunity to kiss my grandsons and my daughters goodbye? Now you have behaved foolishly by doing this. It is in my power to do harm to you, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Take care from speaking with Jacob, whether good or evil. Now you have surely gone because you desperately long for the house of your father. But why did you steal my gods? Then Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I thought, lest you take your daughters from me by force. But with whomever you find your gods, he shall not live. And the presence of your kinsmen now identify what is with me, that is yours, and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Then Laban went into Jacob's tent and Leah's tent, and the tent of the 2 female servants, and did not find his gods. And he came out of Leah's tent and went into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the idols and put them in the saddlebag of the camel and sat on them. And Jacob searched the whole tent thoroughly, but did not find them. And she said to her father, "Let there not be anger in the eyes of my lord, for I am not able to rise before you, for the way of women is with me." And he searched carefully and did not find the idols. Then Jacob became angry and quarreled with Laban. Jacob answered and said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin that you pursued after me? For you have searched all my possessions. And what did you find among all the possessions of my household? Set it before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between the 2 of us. These 20 years I was with you. Your ewes and your female goats did not miscarry, and the rams of your flock I did not eat. I brought no mangled carcass to you. I bore its loss. From my hand you sought it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was during the day, the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I have served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, indeed now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my misery and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night." Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, and the grandsons are my grandsons, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see, it is mine. Now, what can I do for these, my daughters today, or for their children whom they have borne? So now, come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between me and you." And Jacob took a stone and set it up as a stone pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a pile of stones, and they ate there by the pile of stones. And Laban called it Yagar Sahadutah, but Jacob called it Galid. Then Laban said, "This pile of stones is a witness between me and you today." Therefore, its name is called Galid and Mizpah, because he said, "Yahweh watch between me and you when we are out of sight of each other. If you mistreat my daughters, and if you take wives besides my daughters, when there is no man with us, see, God is a witness between me and you." And Laban said to Jacob, "See this pile of stones, and see this pillar that I have set up between me and you. This pile of stones is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this pile of stones to you, and that you will not pass beyond this pile of stones and this pillar to me, intending harm. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." Then Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob sacrificed a sacrifice on the hill, and he called his kinsmen to eat the meal. And they ate the meal and spent the night on the hill. And Laban arose early in the morning and kissed his grandsons and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned to his homeland. And Jacob went on his way, and angels of God met him. And when he saw them, Jacob said, "This is the camp of God." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother, to the land of Seir, the territory of Edom. Okay. We're in the gospel reading now. It's Matthew 13 through 14. Starting in Matthew 13. On that day, Yeshua went out of the house and was sitting by the sea, and large crowds gathered close around him, so that he got into a boat to sit down, and all the crowd was standing on the shore. And he spoke many things to them in parables, saying, "Behold, the sower went out to sow. And while he was sowing, some seed fell on the side of the path, and the birds came and devoured it. And other seed fell on the rocky ground, where it did not have much soil, and it sprang up at once, because it did not have any depth of soil. But when the sun arose, it was scorched, and because it did not have enough root, it withered. And other seed fell among the thorn plants, and the thorn plants came up and choked it. But other seed fell on the good soil and produced grain, this one 100 times as much as this one 60, and this one 30. The one who has ears, let him hear." And the disciples came up and said to him, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" And he answered and said to them, "To you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to those people it has not been granted. For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. For this reason I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And with reference to them, the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled that says, 'You will listen carefully and will never understand, and you will look closely and will never perceive. For the heart of this people has become dull, and with their ears they hear with difficulty, and they have shut their eyes, so that they would not see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and turn, and I would hear them, and I would heal them. But your eyes are blessed because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I say to you that many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see and did not see it, and to hear what you hear and did not hear it. You therefore listen to the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is what was sown on the side of the path. And what was sown on the rocky ground? This is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. But he does not have a root in himself, but lasts only a little while. And when affliction or persecution happens because of the word, immediately he falls away. And what was sown into the thorn plants? This is the one who hears the word, and the anxiety of this world and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, and it becomes unproductive. But what was sown on the good soil? This is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and produces, this one 100 times as much, and this one 60, and this one 30. And he put before them another parable, saying, The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his people were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed darnel in the midst of the wheat and went away. So when the wheat sprouted and yielded grain, then the darnel appeared also. So the slaves of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have darnel? And he said to them, An enemy has done this. So the slaves said to him, Then do you want us to go and gather them? But he said, No, lest when you gather the darnel, you uproot the wheat together with it. Let both grow together until the harvest, and at the season of the harvest, I will tell the reapers, First gather the darnel, and tie it into bundles, to burn them, but gather the wheat into my storehouse. He put before them another parable, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds. But when it is grown, it is larger than the garden herbs, and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the sky come and nest in its branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that the woman took and put into 3 measures of wheat flour until the whole batch was leavened. Yeshua spoke all these things to the crowds in parables, and he was saying nothing to them without a parable, in order that what was spoken through the prophet would be fulfilled, who said, I will open my mouth in parables. I will proclaim what has been hidden since the creation. Then he left the crowds and came into the house, and his disciples came to him, saying, Explain the parable of the darnel in the field to us. So he answered and said, The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, and the field is the world. And the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, but the darnel are the sons of the evil one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. And the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Thus, just as the darnel is gathered and burned with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all the causes of sin and those who do lawless deeds, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. The one who has ears, let him hear. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field that a man found and concealed, and in his joy he goes and sells everything that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls, and when he found one very valuable pearl, he went and sold everything that he possessed and purchased it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was thrown into the sea and gathered fish of every kind, which, when it was filled, they pulled to the shore and sat down and collected the good fish into the containers, but the bad they threw out. Thus it will be at the end of the age. The angels will go out and separate the evil from among the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all these things? They said to him, Yes. And he said to them, For this reason every scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like the master of the house, who brings out of his storeroom new things and old things. And it happened that when Yeshua had finished these parables, he went away from there, and he came to his hometown and began to teach them in their synagogue, so that they were amazed and said, From where did this man get this wisdom and these miracles? Is not this one the son of the carpenter? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us? From where then did this man get all these things?" And they were offended by him. But Yeshua said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own hometown and in his own household." And he did not perform many miracles in that place because of their unbelief. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the report about Yeshua, and he said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead, and for this reason miraculous powers are at work in him." For Herod, after arresting John, bound him and put him in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, because John had been saying to him, "It is not permitted for you to have her." And although he wanted to kill him, he feared the crowd because they looked upon him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday celebration took place, the daughter of Herodias danced in the midst of them and pleased Herod. Therefore he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. And coaxed by her mother, she said, "Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter." And although the king was distressed because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he commanded the request to be granted. And he sent orders and had John beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took away the corpse and buried it, and went and told Yeshua. Now, when Yeshua heard it, he withdrew from there in a boat to an isolated place by himself. And when the crowds heard it, they followed him by land from the towns. And as he got out, he saw the large crowd and had compassion on them and healed their sick. Now, when it was evening, the disciples came to him saying, "The place is desolate and the hour is late. Release the crowds so that they can go away into the villages and purchase food for themselves." But Yeshua said to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "We do not have anything here except 5 loaves and 2 fish. So he said, "Bring them here to me." And he commanded the crowds to recline for a meal on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks. And after breaking them, he gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. Now those who ate were about 5,000 men, in addition to women and children. And immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, while he sent away the crowds. And after he sent away the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. So when evening came, he was there alone, but the boat was already many stadia distant from the land, being beaten by the waves because the wind was against it. And in the 4th watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. But the disciples, when they saw him walking on the sea, were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost," and they cried out in fear. But immediately Yeshua spoke to them, saying, "Have courage, I am he. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And getting out of the boat, Peter walked on the water and came toward Yeshua. But when he saw the strong wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Yeshua extended his hand and caught him and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind abated. So those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." And after they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent word into that whole surrounding region, and they brought to him all those who were sick. And they were imploring him that they might only touch the edge of his cloak. And all those who touched it were cured. Amen.